In this video, I'm going to talk about what I will call the pro player mindset, and how to use what we know from the field of psychology to improve your experience in game. This video is partially inspired by No Monkey's The RuneScape Rich Man Mindset, and I highly recommend that you check that video out if you haven't, especially when thinking about anything related to making GP that would be relevant to this video. I've been thinking about making this video for a couple of weeks now, and with the changes to TOA today, and the outcry about the apparent increase in difficulty, I feel like it's even more relevant now. For a long time, I've observed in the community that many individuals seem to hold the idea that they'll never be able to do certain endgame content due to a perceived extreme level of difficulty, or due to a perceived lack of ability within themselves, or maybe both. I say perceived here because at the end of the day, whether you succeed or not comes down to a difference in mindset. Take myself for example. For a long time, I believed I would never be able to achieve an Infernal Cape. While recently I was able to overcome this and get the cape, there were two factors in my way. One, I thought I would never have the bank value or the gear, and two, I thought I would never be able to get the mechanics down, as I felt I was bad at prayer flicking and understanding ticks. Obviously, bank value and gear is mostly a time investment, as there are many easy money makers. Personally, I went the route of learning Corrupted Gauntlet in order to farm out my own set of crystal armor and a bova for the Inferno. Not only did I make additional gold for supplies while doing this, but I started to work on some endgame skills that I believed would generalize to other content. Now for me, Inferno was the wall I had to overcome. But for others, it might be something that is even higher or lower in difficulty, which is causing them to feel as though they will not be able to beat it. Perhaps your first fire cape will ring some bells here. I'm hoping that this video will inspire some people to push themselves in game and to beat the challenging content that they are currently believing to be impossible. Now, in the field of psychology, there's been an immense interest in understanding how people learn and come to be competent individuals in essentially every cognitive faculty. One of these faculties that has been subject of this focus and is commonly thought to be difficult for individuals to master is math. I'm sure everybody knows someone who has once said, "I'm not a math person," and maybe this is even you. However, in reality, there's no such thing as a math person. This is simply a form of a cognitive bias manifesting. Although there are some things that people might have a more natural ease with than others, there is, generally speaking, no cognitive barrier to being competent at mathematics or any other skill. I'm of course ignoring the extremes of the bell curve here, as these are the exceptions and not the rule. You might not be the best at math, but you can definitely be great at it. But what happens when somebody believes that they're not a math person is that they're adopting a mindset that immediately limits their possibilities when it comes to learning math. Now, where this mindset comes from for a specific individual is not of particular relevance, but it is often influenced by their environment and subsequently reinforced by their own thoughts and beliefs. This type of mindset goes on to cause the individual to avoid learning math, to believe that they're not going to be able to do it in the first place, and to not feel a sense of achievement when they actually engage in doing math. They will instead believe it to be a burden. In the same way that I believed I was not going to be able to learn to prayer flick and learn about the ticks within the game, I avoided and tried wherever possible to not use these mechanics, even if they were the obvious way to play. Some examples for me were at Fasani's Nightmare, or prayer flicking during Slayer tasks to save prayer pots. Even when successful at doing these things in game, I often felt no achievement from them, because I was thinking that they should not be the way I have to play, and that they were more difficult than what they were worth. The research in this area has shown that simply by teaching students to adopt a growth mindset, you can have a tangible effect on their math grades by increasing their motivation and sense of achievement. Rather than thinking about it as, I have to do math and I'm not good at it, their thoughts might become something more like, I have to do math and it will be a challenge for me to overcome. It's important to recognize that your thoughts or mindset do not have to become overtly positive about something for them to have a positive effect. Simply by shifting how you perceive something to be a challenge to overcome rather than an obstacle in your way or an undue burden, your experience will improve. You will most likely feel a greater sense of intrinsic motivation as you move towards your goals, or a greater sense of personal growth. Now, what defines your own personal growth or provides you with your goals will vary from person to person, and it's fine if you don't want to learn to become the best Runescape player. However, you can, and I would argue should, strive to not let any closed mindsets prevent you from improving at the game. And especially for those of you who do want to become better but struggle to improve, maybe this will help a bit. So how can you implement a growth mindset when it comes to RuneScape? First, I would suggest that it is always beneficial to set what are known as SMART goals. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. This system of goal setting has been shown to be more effective for leading to goal achievement than having a diffuse or overly vague goal. So rather than saying, I want to be better at the game, choose something that will help you get towards that. So let's take the Inferno as an example. It's specific, it's measurable through wave progression, cape achievement, resource usage, attempt count, etc. It's achievable, as many players have completed the Inferno, and as Exact himself says in his guides, you can do this, and you can do it, although it might take a progression to get you there. Similarly to me when I had to build up my bank and skills to be ready. It is also realistic once that account progression is complete, although it's important to note, if it's not already obvious, that it might not be realistic if your current setup is just a rune crossbow, and you might have never stepped foot inside the Inferno. This is a variable that can make or break your SMART goal. If it is not a realistic goal because your account is not progressed enough, then perhaps you have to set a lower level goal first, and then work your way up to it. It can definitely help to identify a logical progression in your account to work on and work up towards endgame content and a higher skill level. When it comes to the timely aspect of SMART goals, this is a bit of an arbitrary one in my experience. Personally, I set myself the goal to get the Infernal Cape before Raids 3 dropped. It took me 42 attempts across 17 calendar days to finally get it, which was 2 days before Raids 3 released. Of course, for you, timely might be on a longer time scale, or maybe even a shorter time scale, depending on the goal and your available playtime. For example, if you're newer to the game, does it make sense to expect that you could do Inferno in 3 weeks of progress? Probably not. But the importance here is that you do set yourself some sort of timeline that is also realistic and a specified timeline in order to keep yourself accountable and moving towards that goal. Of course, one of the wonders with RuneScape is that you can have many goals and constantly change them. This video is primarily focused on improving your skill level at the game and geared towards becoming the best possible player you can be. You can of course change your goals at any time. There are lots of ways that you can use these SMART goals too. Another example I'd like to point out is that perhaps you could get even more specific about your goals. This often helps make goals feel even more realistic and attainable, and it often provides a greater sense of achievement and growth due to the more frequent accomplishment of goals. So maybe your goal for the Inferno would be first to learn to flick blobs, learn to deal with the melee, learn how to use the pillars effectively, and then to make it to wave 17, wave 35, and so on. You can be as precise as you'd like, and as vague as you'd like, assuming it is still a specific goal. This Inferno example of learning mechanics first comes from advice that Adicon gave me when I first started learning Inferno. He said that many players make the mistake of trying to just tunnel for wave progression rather than focusing on specific mechanics within the Inferno. Addy was embodying SMART goals in this fashion, probably without even knowing it. I'd highly recommend adopting an approach that is hierarchical, where your overarching goal is the Inferno, for example, and then the sub-goals are SMART goals set to be even more specific as I just outlined. Just to hammer home the point, although I use the example of the Inferno, you can apply this sort of approach to any content. The second thing you can do to implement a growth mindset is to really monitor your thoughts. This comes from cognitive behavioral therapy principles, where I have clients develop an awareness of their negative self-talk, so that they can then challenge and replace those thoughts with more balanced and possibly even positive thoughts. So when trying to learn new content, if you find yourself getting frustrated and feeling as though you won't ever be able to do it because you're not a pro player, or maybe because Jagex made it too difficult, perhaps challenge these thoughts with things such as, I'm just starting to learn this, I can do this, it will just take some time, or I need to progress my account in another way before I can do this. Of course, there are an infinite amount of prompts you could come up with in this area. It might even help you to generate your own that would be more specific to you. Finally, the third thing you can do is really decide what you want to improve on. Identify your weaknesses and your strengths, leverage your strengths when learning new things, and find ways to improve on your areas of weakness. There are a lot of skills that generalize between content, and learning individual mechanics for a boss or raid are often completed much quicker than you would expect. Try to pick something, dive in, and look at it as an opportunity to improve on a wide range of skills, rather than just as a grind you have to overcome. To conclude, a pro player is not necessarily inherently more talented than you. They simply have a different mindset. Your mindset could be in your own way more than you expect. And if you believe the content is unattainable, then your mindset is definitely in the way. You can shift this perspective and approach the game in a more growth-oriented fashion and achieve any goal that you set your mind to. So, I hope that for some of you this has provided a new perspective on how to approach improving at the game. Try to keep this perspective in mind when giving Jagex or big streamers and content creators a criticism. I think as humans, we often look to others to cast blame on for our own shortcomings. Do what you can to become a better player, a better community member, and a more self-actualized individual. Now I want to take the chance to shout out a few resources for those of you who are interested in improving in some way. They will all be linked in the description below. There's the OSRS Gear Discord, which provides setups, guides, and other advice for almost all content in the game. There's the Inferno Discord, which is a community of speedrunners and Inferno enjoyers who provide advice to others. There is the We Do Raids Discord, which offers raid teaching experiences for Chambers of Xeric, and I'm sure the other raids at this point as well. They also have an excellent Inferno First Cape guide. And recently there's been the TOA Discord, which is focused on Raids 3. Finally, I would really recommend checking out many of the Runescape content creators out there. We have an amazing community filled with a ton of motivated people who love to help others and love to push the game to its limits. Lately, I personally have used a ton of advice from, in no specific order, Exact, No Monkey, Molgoat Kirby, Adicon, and Dear Lola. They all produce incredible content in general, and for the Inferno specifically, as this was my focus until recently. I know there are many others, and I'm sorry for leaving you out. These were just the few that came to mind as I wrote this script. If you believe someone else should be added to this list, let me know and I'll add them in the description as well. Wrapping up, this video was not meant to be entirely comprehensive, and was meant more as an appetizer to get your motivation rolling, and to hopefully help some people overcome barriers to developing their own skills. If you have any feedback, questions, disagree with what I said, or want to add to this conversation, feel free to leave it in the comments below. I'll read every single one of them, and I'll respond to as many as I can as well. I have an extensive knowledge of psychology, as I'm currently a clinical trainee in my doctorate, and I would be happy to try and apply more of this knowledge to helping you improve at the game. If you can think of other areas you'd like me to talk about, also let me know below. I'm currently considering making a video on how to overcome long grinds in the game, and if this would be of interest to you, please do let me know below specifically. Finally, if you liked the video, it'd be awesome if you could hit the thumbs up or toss me a subscription. And if you're watching on the night that the video goes up, there's a good chance I'll be live on Twitch at Kez TV. I'll likely be doing some Raids 3. You can come say hi, pipe up in the chat if you want, tell me I'm a Gargalon, or feel free to ask me questions there as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.